Part of the Department of Resource Economics and Development. State government is filled with bureaucracy, and so we work for DREAD. It's not a very good sort of an acronym, but it's what we have. So I've been here at the facility for about 12 years. I met Mick when I was teaching over at UNH. He was hanging around there and teaching at UNH in the Thompson School in the Forestry program, and he was working in the horticulture program just down the hall. And we've been doing classes like this together for a while, so it's a lot of fun to do this, and glad folks are here. I encourage folks to come back, walk the grounds, check the facility out during the daytime. Dogs are welcome, passive recreation, that kind of stuff, snow shoeing, cross-country skiing. Yes, winter's coming, it's just around the corner. So tonight we're going to talk about a whole sort of barrage of things. I'll be around if you've got more questions. My presentation on sort of trees and arborists and that kind of stuff, very informal. There's 3 or 4 handouts in the back of the table. Please help yourself. But basically, to start out with hiring an arborist to come onto your property, in New Hampshire there's no certification requirement. So you can be an arborist with a pickup truck and a chainsaw and a couple of buddies. And there are plenty of those around. So be aware of what you're hiring and what you're getting. I think the 2 guys at the back table used to be those 2 guys, if they're laughing at themselves or laughing at who they hired. And you can hire yourself out for service. We've had some changes within the industry over the last few decades. And there's certification, it's a voluntary certification program through the New Hampshire Arborist Association or through the International Society of Arboriculture. I'm a certified arborist with ISA, which is the International Society of Arboriculture. Both of them have websites, both of them have membership lists right on their websites. You can check those out. You look at the yellow pages on the tree work, and you'll see their certification under that. So they little, if anybody even uses the yellow pages anymore, their symbols and certifications are listed right in there. What you're looking for is somebody that's going to have insurance and workman's comp to cover any of the issues that may happen. We've had some recent tragedies around the seacoast area with arboriculture and urban forestry and everything else, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're responsible for that. If you are a homeowner hiring somebody uncertified and everything else, you're responsible for the mistakes that they make. So it's very important to hire somebody that has those credentials and expertise. And with those certifications come additional training. So they have to maintain CEUs and get continuing education units and be part of the industry. So try to support the folks that are trying to support the keep the industry alive. As far as trees and tree care around your home, trees and all the other plant material will increase your plant sort of value, and everything else will increase your value and income and curb appeal of your house. My focus on the end of trees with the brochures in the back. If you've recently had construction done around your home, those trees are going to show up. Construction injury will usually show up 3 to 7 years down the road. So people sometimes forget what happened several years ago on their property, and then they start having trees with limbs having problems and leaves showing die back early. Fall foliage is coming. Whether you want it or not, it's coming. And fall foliage happens on trees that are stressed first. So the ones on the sides of the roads, the ones in the ditches, the ones on the edge of the parking lots that sort of get baked on and caked on all summer long. So start looking at your trees and see which ones show symptoms of foliage first. Some are species driven, but usually it's a stress factor, the ones that really pop out early. So those trees may have some issues, and you may want to have those trees looked at. Go out, inspect the trees, take pictures of the trees. If you have insects and bugs and problems and that kind of stuff, go to nhbugs.org. It's a website that is sponsored by the Division of Forest and Lands and UNH Cooperative Extension. We have some pests that we're looking for right now around the state, emerald ash borer. How many people have seen those little purple traps hanging from the trees? Little purple tubes and triangles and stuff. We're looking for a specific pest that comes in and eats ash trees by the acre and kills ash trees within a year. So we have it in Concord, and we're very effective, trying to affect the population, control the population, and very aggressively looking for those around the state. There's brochures and all this information right out in our publication rack, right out in the hallway. So try to look for those sort of signs and symptoms around your property. If folks want to add trees to your property and learn how to select the right tree for the right spot, there's a brochure on the back of the table how to select and plant young trees. If you have questions during the night, we'll be around. We have classes here usually in the springtime on selecting and planting trees and adding to your landscape. So check the signboard, check our website, and more information will be provided as those classes get developed. Last bit of information, I'll give a plug for an event that's coming up here in November. Festival Trees. Will be here in November. We can't say Christmas at a state facility because Christmas is a bad word within the state government, but it's essentially a holiday gathering. It's essentially Christmas here at this facility. We'll have over 100 decorated trees throughout this building, throughout the ground, and throughout the rest of the buildings. The administrative office and Kate and that kind of stuff are open to the public at that time, and area businesses will come and decorate whatever in those buildings, and it'll be open to the public. And that's the weekend just before Thanksgiving. If you're looking for information on that, go to the Portsmouth Garden Club's website. They work on that program with us, and they do all those sort of logistics to set that up. If you have questions, I'll be around. Thanks.
Thank you.
AJ, just one last question, because I always forget this. How many acres are there?
182 acres, 3.5 miles of trails. Property is open 7 days a week, dawn till dusk, and there's no charge for visitors to be on the ground.
You just don't realize it until you go out and start to walk the trails.
Walking
It goes
the
a long ways.
no horses.
Great facility within the state. So Wickie and I are going to kind of tag team the first part of this and talk about the landscaping part of it. We'll take a quick break and switch computers, and then Nancy Beveridge will talk about the real estate side of it in the second hour, and you can partake of all the nice foods that they've made. To start out with, I've got a picture. This happens to be my home garden, and it's been over a few years that that's been put in. We're trying to establish what is the value of something. What's the value for resale? What did it cost me to do this, etc. There's probably visible there 20 perennials at a value of, call it $15 each at a garden center if you bought them. So that's the cost. Done the work, I put it in, but we prefer perennials as a value for gardening because they come back every year. So I've got perennial geraniums here. People don't think geraniums is a perennial. There are lots of beautiful perennial geraniums right there. We've got some annuals. We've got impatiens. These are New Guinea impatiens because regular impatiens have had a problem with disease, and so they weren't selling many of those this year. I have pulmonarias in the background. That's a great plant. It's called lungwort, or this is actually Diane Clare pulmonaria. And that gives some, sparkle in the back from spring right through November, maybe even into December. It's a wonderful thing. So, what is the value of this? The value, the cost to me of what is there is probably $400. The value of that is probably at least double that if you have a landscaper do it for you. So, if you kind of use that as a kind of rough way to look at it, it's probably an $800 value. We've taken some interesting things. I'm using an old wash stand and turn the wash tub upside down and put a plant on top of it, and that adds a little more pizzazz to it. This is a shade garden. This is in dense shade. A lot of people think, I've got shade, I can't do anything with it, I can't make it any better. Lots of things will grow in the shade. We even planted some of the impatiens in a hole in the tree, and they took. So just something. So an $800 value here. What's the value of that? It's $800. So Wickie and I, in working together, have kind of come up with this word, and it's miniscape. And what is a miniscape? For me, it's a bite-sized piece of the landscape. So many people, you talk about doing a master plan for somebody's property. A master plan just confuses a lot of people because you're looking down at a bird's eye view of something, and you don't know the names of the plants, and you don't know what they're going to look like fully grown, et cetera, et cetera. So we've come up with an idea of this bite-sized piece of the landscape, which is a miniscape. So this is a post office. They call that building the post office, at a condo that we take care of. So here's the miniscape plan. Wickie draws the plan. This is the bird's eye view here that has the name of all the plants and what's where, et cetera, and there's the building, looking down, bird's eye view. And then her artistic abilities take over, and she makes a great drawing of it, a great elevation of that. So this is what it looks like 2 to 3 years down the road is what we're predicting.
It's hard to tell sometimes when you look at that. It's just colored walls. It's hard to know if the textures are colored. You identify them. Yeah, first as well, iris.
Iris
daisies.
Yes, the daisies.
What's a gray? What's that Russian daisy?
Yellow is probably Coreopsis. The daylilies in the front. Correct. So then we go on to what does it look like? This is less than a year later, but there's the install. And mostly the Russian sage is what you see at this particular time. Grown up a lot since then. People very happy with the result. The one thing that we have to caution people when we show them the elevation drawing is that it shows all the plants in flower, or most of the plants in flower. It's never going to look exactly like that. The Russian sage is flowering at a different time than the daylilies, et cetera, et cetera. But as this matures and the lilacs get big in the back, the lilacs in the back here are fairly small, it's going to look a lot like that. That's the value of the Miniscapes.
This is what you see it like, and my background's English, my mother's English. Some of my husband's childhood memories were playing in my grandparents' garden. My education is through KSC School of Design in London, and horticulture from the Royal Horticultural Society. So I suppose you think that all those crowded lines are right up my alley, but what it is a finding that went in shortly after the house was built, and you can understand you want to have some kind of base findings that the house doesn't get completely stark and out there. But what happens is, I think, I don't know, but a lot of attention is paid to the exact species of plants that they're using. So, some plants that really only grow to be about this high when they're all grown up, they're not using those, they're using ones that are going to be 10 feet tall, and, pretty soon they're all trying to invade the house. And this is like, hear the windows and people whose house this is actually, when I asked them if it was okay to use the slide, they said yes, as long as it was perfectly clear to say to all of you that they didn't want any of it. So this is a Miniscape that I've just drawn on. It hasn't been installed yet, but we end up removing most of these and putting in perennials and shrubs that will actually grow to a normal size and it won't require cutting. Sometimes things that I think is nice to have, I think probably jump in, but don't.
I'm saying some things that are in, you're looking at them, but you're not gonna get the return if it's too specialized. The more specialized it is, the less return.
I mean, this would be lovely, so you're not going to last a lot of fall or fire pit or somebody else can put it to. So do it for yourself. This, I wish I could say was one of mine, but it's not for the reason. Just a couple of things that stuck with the water, features we put the sound of water, again, that sort of thing does take maintenance. So on. And also, big, beautiful garden. If you're a gardener and you're looking for a house, at least personally speaking, I don't want a garden job. I want to do it myself. And if I wasn't a gardener and I looked at that, I'd probably run. You must have enough money to hire a gardener because there's so much to it. So I think do it because you love it and you want to live in it for a long time.
If I could tell a story without using any names, we were brought into this by a landscape architect from Bunkport, whom I know. And this is in Massachusetts, and this was an artist lady and her husband. And the wonderful thing was that she's such an artist that she wanted things like this. So I won't say money was no object, but when it came to the time, if she saw something she really wanted, and we quoted what I consider to be a very high price. For instance, the cost of the two railings there, before we bent them to fit, was $5,000. Before we even mounted them, the cost of the material was $5,000. But long story short, when we would say that's what it's going to cost, and we were trying to keep costs down, she was an artist who had saved a bunch of work and hadn't sold it. And she said, well, I want it, so I'm going to sell another piece of art. And she would go sell some of her art, and the project would continue. At the start of the project, it was fairly small. Didn't include the stairs. It didn't include the water feature. It was just a patio up above where you see the pergola. What did you call it? What's the word?
It's a cabinet.
Cabinet. And that was about the end of it. Halfway through that job, daughter announces she wants to get married on August 20th, and here it is July 20th, and oh, by the way, we'd like all this done by then, including a summer house in the backside. So we had a month to get all of that done. It was a very expensive job, but they were such a pleasure to work for, this couple, and she's a great gardener. I think those are morning glories growing up the poles. Those had been there less than 2 weeks when I took that picture. That's how much she fertilized those to get them going. This lady was a great artist, great gardener, and it was just such fun. This was an arts and crafts period house designed by Stickler, Gustav Stickler, fairly famous. It's a historic house down in Massachusetts. These people have taken wonderful care of it and tried to do everything according to the way it would have been done back then. And so they hired Cindy Brockway, who is, her thing is past designs. That's the name of her business. And she does historical landscape architecture. That's her whole business, so that's why we got involved in that. We were taking up old bricks. Stickler built the house in the early 1900s. We were taking up old bricks from the original patio that had GS on every brick printed on it. He had the bricks made specially. We tried to use them again as much as we could.
This is another thing that is fairly specialized. This is a greenhouse project that I'm consulting with. And it's going to be next week. This part is going on. I think you can probably argue that in England, the greenhouse is something to sell more than it is here. It's something this big. The homeowner here is one of the greenhouse all of his life. He's saved and saved, and he's looking forward to retirement. He wants to retire in his greenhouse. And so this has just been a project that's been dreamed about and ongoing for a while. And it's not likely tens of thousands of dollars. This is going to cost. It's not going to be looking to sell the property, but he's going to enjoy himself. And again, it's a really good example of sometimes you just do it for yourself. But it's always good to think about what might or might not happen later, so I'm surprised.
Oh, another one for personal enjoyment. Another one of my favorite jobs with really nice people. A lot of my landscaping jobs with people that become friends, and this is one of them. These folks are from Texas. They own a summer house in Kennebunkport. Just great, fun people, and they are patrons of the arts, and they own a, what do you call it when you make that stuff? Foundry. They own a foundry in Texas. And so they had the moose made at the foundry, and Mr. Harcourt called me up and said, we got a 1,500-pound moose coming up on a trailer. We want you to get it out there into the backyard. And so here's the guy from the foundry who brought it up. He brought it up on the trailer. He said he got some really funny looks, because it was an open trailer, driving that up from Texas. We got it off. We had a small crane, and after we got it as far as we could with the crane, we had to put it on plywood and on rollers and do it, the old style. This is near a wetland, so you can't put any equipment down there, but the moose is there, and he has lots of flowers around him now. He looks like he's lying in a bed of flowers. And these folks, as I say, are patrons of the arts. So they also have a Texas Ranger with a gun by the front door. They have a bobcat mounted on a big rock outcrop. And, two bears. Yes, 2 bears in the front yard. And it's just such a fun place and so interesting. Everything in the front yard is perennials. There's no grass in the front yard. Interesting place and good for personal enjoyment. I don't know if they'd ever get the money back on the moose, to be honest with you. I doubt it. They did it for personal enjoyment.
You don't have to spend a lot of money to do something fun. So I just decided to end our little bit of this picture because I think it always pays to keep your sense of humor and just have a little fun in your garden and do some things for yourself and not worry about it. Are there any questions at this point? We will, eventually we'll stop for 10 minutes of refreshment and snacks and people look at some of the pictures and things like that. But
I just have a question. That's those very dishes that you transplanted well. You conquered it. However, how about the land itself?
Technically, I think the way the law is written, you can't either. Because you are.
Because it's already in their yard, you already own it, so therefore you can take from one place to another.
Could make it worse. You could make it worse by transplanting. In other words, I'll explain to you one place where I've seen it. There's a big hill in Dover that overlooks the Bellamy River Wildlife Preserve. There are places where you cannot walk through the Bellamy River Wildlife Preserve because there's so much wild burning bush. And you might not even notice it as burning bush because in the wild it looks different. It's not trimmed and heavy like it is in your front yard. It's a wild shrub, and all you know is you can't walk through the woods. What has happened is that the seeds have been either moved by birds or blown by the wind down the hill and into the wildlife preserve from the houses up on top of the hill. And so that's what's happening, and there are places, AJ could tell you all over the state, that's the same way. I didn't, as I thought about it, it's like, there's grass all around this, there's no problem with this, but they do get moved. So let's say you transplanted that burning bush from the front yard where it wasn't getting blown by the wind, and transplanted it to another spot where it was getting blown by the wind, and all of a sudden, you've added to the problem. So I'm a believer, I will tell you that. I mean, nobody's gonna come around and arrest you if you do that at your house, I can guarantee it. But I'm a believer in most of these invasive species. Norway maple, you can't buy or plant Norway maples anymore because they seed themselves in so voraciously that you can't do anything, you can't find anything else.
The main thing is invasive, is nothing else can stay.
Yes.
There has been a couple of cases in New Hampshire where homeowners were fined and the plants were removed from their property because they had a property dispute with a budding landowner. The budding landowner put the state on notice that they were moving plants around their property, so the state did get involved. The Department of Agriculture did go out and enforce, and there were heavy fines levied with that. So moving the plants, the other problem that you're going to do is when you dig up a burning bush, you're always going to have remnants left behind. It's a very aggressive root plant. You're not going to get all the roots out of the ground, and it will re-sprout itself in that location. So you'll take one and make two very easily.
I always kind of do things backwards, so I have to apologize because I didn't properly introduce Wickie, but I have to tell the story of how we started working together, and that is that Wickie and her husband I had known for years, and they asked us to bid on a project at their house. And Wickie, for the most part, was her idea.
To get started on Miniscapes, whatever you come up with in consultation.
Come out, talk, find out what you want, figure out, the Miniscape starts at $300, and vary depending on, sometimes some of it's here and some of it's there, and so it ends up being 2 Miniscapes or 1.5, and there's surveying needs to be done, whatever. So we can tell you that, and at that point, if you decide you want to go ahead with it, put down a deposit, plan, go to discuss it. Then it's up to you whether you want Labrie to install it or if you want to put it out to bid, whether people want to stay, it's up to you. The difference is, when I do a design, I do it assuming that, these things are putting it in, and I know what they can do, I know how they do it, I know what they know what I do, that sort of thing. So if someone else is going to put it in, there is additional design fees for that, because I'm not going to have to explain things, and I was explaining to these guys, but if they put it in, that's what I'm but it's very expensive.
And as far as your install at that point, you work with them over here.
Yes, I mean, it's all part of the process. Wickie's finished the design, she hands it to me, we do an estimate for that, and the proposal goes with the design. Sometimes we go back together, present the design, we did it with Nancy, present the design, this is what we think we should do, here's what it would cost. We broke Nancy's down, I think she's going to be using it in the second hour as to how that would work for her, and you'll see the costs that are involved. But basically, there's always 1 hour of free consultation. We come out, we look at it, we try to give you some ideas. If you hate the ideas, no problem, no cost. If you like the ideas and you want to go forward with a Miniscape, Wickie's, will then start working on it and working with you.
We already had some consultations that we heard.
Yes.
Bottom line, Miniscape starts at
Yes. For instance, the one small house, the Cape, that we did, I said it was a $2,300 job, that was a $300 Miniscape. Yeah, that's,
The one with the deer, that had a problem with deer, that was a little bit more because there's all that gradation and a lot of surveying and so on, so that was $450 for a landscape.
but any of the prices that we've quoted, that included the Miniscape price. In other words, we're talking about the design cost and the installation costs. So any of the prices are totally separate.
Is that a survey cost that you done ahead of time? Or do you include
A
that
lot of
survey?
times, no, a lot of times it's included in the Miniscape price because it's fairly easy. I mean, if you know, for example, there's some examples back there of a big master plan might be as many as 12 or 13 Miniscapes. And, you know, then there would probably be a fee for doing the survey. If you already have a plan when you bought the house and, you know, someone surveyed it and showed what the septic system was or something like that,
Like a
that can be
plot plan.
used as a
Plot
basis.
plan,
Yeah,
yes.
that can be used as a basis of it, and that would save you. So, you know, most of the time you don't have to go out and get a whole survey. It depends very much on the place. Before any planting is done, we always have to have a law safe has to come out and show us where tools are and things like that. We always open up our notes where there's a secret base, like the cellar that was put, you know, or it's an underground tank or something that's no longer used. So let us know about that. But, you know, cautions taken. But,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed stuff, I apologize. Did you talk at all about landscape lighting?
No, we didn't.
Is that something you're going to talk about in a second?
I didn't intend to. We can,
Oh,
I
I just wondered, because we have a house that's set back, we have like, I guess you call it a landscape back, I don't know, trying to decide about landscape lighting. Is that something that adds value or that's interesting, or what's your thoughts on lighting?
Well, I do think it adds value. Well, here's why I think it adds value. In other words, if you have the patio, it makes it more valuable because now you can use the patio at night. So the low voltage lighting, it's not as expensive as you might think for low voltage.
To show up on the trees, like,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
and
pretty
you know, there was $5,000 worth of landscape lighting put in as a secondary thing at the Exeter Inn. So, you know, to uplight the trees and to light the front of it and all that. So, you would think that it would be a lot more expensive than that, but it wasn't. It wasn't expensive. That was 2 different transformers and everything else. But you don't know about low voltage lighting. You can plug that into a wall socket. It's got a transformer, and then you take all the low voltage from there. I mean, homeowners can actually do low voltage lighting and legally do it. And we can do it if you're getting into big stuff, and electricians get involved. But I think it has value if you've got the thing and you want to make it useful at night, and then that adds value.
so folks with the slope that was attacked by deer, they had put in themselves some low voltage lighting in the base of the trees. And I think it depends on its atmosphere. So, I mean, if I were looking at a house and we had that, I think it was a plus.
But I think probably everybody in this room is interested in gardens and interested in using the outside, so we'd all look at it as a positive. But there are certain people in the world that just don't see that, you know, and don't look beyond the front door. So Nancy can talk about that.
So there's some cookies.
There's lots of refreshments over here, there's apples, pumpkin,